Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming today for our strategic planning forum for 2024. So excited and appreciate that you all took your time out of your schedule to be here, all of my fellow council members and staff. This really means a lot for us to be committed to this process. We as a body started our strategic planning process about 2 years ago. And so now as we go into year 3, it's great to look back and remember all of our accomplishments. Just last week, we were all together celebrating our record-breaking economic development success at our breakfast. And that is in part to the planning that council has done, as well as working with staff to make sure that we have the foundation that we need in our community to attract economic development, but also to continue to provide resources for our residents. And so today and tomorrow, we have many topics to discuss as we develop our next key initiatives for 2024. It will continue to pull from initiatives and goals that are in our strategic plan that we all agreed upon, but really set a path forward of how we're going to get there and make sure that those key pressing issues that we address while we're here today, so when we go back and begin our work next month, we'll know the things we need to focus on. So thank you again for coming. I appreciate you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Administrator Brown.
So I'm just going to take a few moments and do a couple introductions, but I came in this morning thinking I was going to put a little prank on Mr. Pugh, and I provided him a sheet of paper, and I told him, I said, Ms. Mackey said, here are your notes for the meeting, for your presentation. And he was like, I'm not worried about that. He's like, it's going to be all right. And I said that because I think it's a great opportunity for us as we continue to grow and develop together as an organization, both from the council level, as Chair Mackey said, partnering with the staff that here at Richland County. And I just want to take a few moments to acknowledge a few folks in the room, just talk to you and just say, as Ms. Mackey said, this strategic planning forum process, maybe you weren't there as staff members, at the onset, but you are very integral to this part of the process as we listen to information that ultimately we're going to use to support the efforts of the policymakers, which is County Council. And so for the team members that are here who haven't participated directly before, I certainly want to, again, welcome you here. And then to the council, I do want to take a moment to do just a few introductions because we actually have maybe a couple of people in the room that you haven't had a chance to meet before today. And one of those persons is a person that we don't do replacing people here, right? We know we've had good people that have come, that have left their mark and have gone on to other things. And when I say that right now, I'm talking about our former budget director, Abhi Deshpande. And he came, left a mark, and now it's moving on to other things. But actually in this meeting this morning, we actually have a new budget director who is present. I'm going to take a few moments to kind of read her bio. I won't try to embarrass her, but I'll ask her to stand just so you can see who she is. It's a young lady by the name of Miss Madison Wilkerson, who comes to us from Lexington-Richland School District 5, where she served as their chief financial officer. In this capacity, she was responsible for finance, accounting, procurement divisions of the district. She also oversaw the preparation of their annual budget, federal, state, and local monitoring for compliance, all federal state audits, and monthly and annual financial statement presentation to the district. Additionally, she served as risk manager, overseeing all property, casualty, and workers' compensation insurance for the district, and managed all debt issuances for the district. So you can see she does have a wealth of experience that she comes with. Prior to being at Lexington-Richland 5, Madison was the budget officer and senior financial officer at the city of Rock Hill, where she prepared and presented the budget for all funds and also managed the capital improvement fund for the city, as well as overseeing procurement, warehouse, and fleet division, and facilitated debt engagements. She's a licensed CPA, certified public accountant. She also worked in public tax accounting with Cherry Beckert for nonprofit and corporate tax clients. She holds a bachelor's degree in business with major in business from the University of South Carolina, a master's degree in business from Winthrop University, and again, she's a certified public accountant and a certified government finance officer. So Ms. Wilkerson comes to Richland County with a lot of background and a lot of ability. So we're going to just take a few moments and ask her to stand just so you can get an opportunity just to see her. Certainly, as the days go on and as the time goes on, you will have the opportunity to spend time and get to know her, and she will try to help support our efforts going forward with our budget process. We also have a few other folks in our midst who are kind of moving up to the director level, coming into our next year. You know some of these people, but just wanted to make sure that we have an opportunity to just know some of the people in the room. So if there's some faces you haven't seen consistently, just want you to take your time doing a strategic planning forum and spend some time getting to know them a little bit because you'll be seeing them more frequently. So as I kind of transition and move into just a few minutes, I won't be up here 30 minutes, but I do want to talk briefly about the state of the county and give you some information about some things that I feel have accomplished together as an organization. And I want to start by formally really kind of presenting this to you. So to Chair Jessica Mackey, Vice Chair Pugh, certainly to all of our attendees that are present in the room, County Council members who have joined us on this morning, as well as other staff and team members, people that are online, want to just take a moment and talk to you about the value of our strategic planning forum. Certainly, you've been welcomed, and I say to you good morning as the County Administrator of Richland County, but I also want to take a moment and set the table for what our strategic planning forum is. It is an annual council event that offers us an occasion to reflect on the decisions we've made. And you've heard me talk about this before, the works we've performed and the results we've experienced over the past year. Equally important, it allows us to analyze and learn from our past efforts and consider how to best set the course for Richland County going forward. And that is a very key part of your participation in the strategic planning forum on this morning. Overall, I would describe 2023 as a year of positive momentum and forward progress. I think the steps that the County Council has taken, the policies that they've implemented, the ordinances that they've adopted, and then the steps that they've put in place for staff to follow up on will allow us to continue to move forward with progress in 2024. In 2023, we experienced many opportunities to actively pursue goals and objectives in the initiative of our strategic plan. And as a result, we were able to celebrate many milestones. If you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at the county's website and take a look at the annual report. The annual report is something that was a vision of me. I challenged our communications team to produce a document that we could put out that reflects the accomplishments of our agency over the course of a period of time. So when you take a look at that, we're going to be asking for feedback. We want to make that better next year, but it is an opportunity for us to review the past experiences and the celebratory milestones in 2023. I want to take a moment just to express again my gratitude and appreciation to Richland County Council. I know it sounds like lip service, but I really do appreciate the opportunity to serve as your county administrator. It is a choice that you make, and I appreciate you giving me that opportunity to serve in this role. I also want to take a moment and just say thank you to the executive administrative team of Richland County. That includes my assistant county administrators, as well as my assistant to the county administrator. So if you just indulge me for a moment, I am going to ask them to wave their hands because these men and women help serve me in serving the public. And I could not do what I do without all the support of county administration, but certainly without the additional support of my executive team. So I'm going to ask ACA Eric Jensen, if you will just kind of wave your hand so people see who you are. I'm going to ask ACA Dr. John Thompson, who tried to find a way to hide in the back. ACA Lori Thomas. And then our assistant to the county administrator, Mrs. Shear Myers, who I know is in the room somewhere. There you are. So again, for those of you who don't know, sometimes I get phone calls, but a lot of times they get phone calls. And they serve the council members, they serve the community in my behest. And I believe a lot of times they do a great job. and I could not do what I do for the county without their support and the support of their team. So to all of county administration, thank you for what you do in serving Richland County. Now, I'm going to take a moment and tell a little on myself just a little bit. I know that my focus on providing excellent customer service can get a little intense at times. You don't have to say amen. But I truly believe that providing excellent customer service is the single most impactful catalyst to Richland County becoming a nationally recognized organization for performance excellence. We must seek the opportunity in every interaction we have to demonstrate excellent customer service. And so when I make those extra phone calls or send those extra emails or go out on those visits with you, it's all in the mindset of providing excellent service. And this idea of service excellence permeates throughout the entirety of our strategic plan, which was adopted by Richland County Council. The plan was developed to serve as a guide for our actions and to help us be intentional in how and when and where we allocate finite county resources. This past year, you might recall that we actually went through the strategic planning process with the budget for the first time. And so while we're going into the third year of our strategic plan, this will be the second full year we're going through it with the strategic plan being in place. And so I'm looking forward to how we make this a more user-friendly process and a more of an engagement tool with the citizens of Richland County and those who are interested in how we serve. So again, I just want to take a moment to thank the County Council for adopting a strategic plan that allows us to take these steps forward. So this past few years, I have presented Richland County with unprecedented challenges that previously were unimagined. But throughout these uncertain times, Richland County Council has remained steadfast and resolute in its efforts to improve the quality of life for all Richland County residents. While the federal COVID-19 public health emergency declaration ended on May 11, 2023, the effects of the pandemic on people, industry, and organizations still linger today. From a physical and mental wellness perspective, the people that continue to be impacted the most are communities with limited physical and financial access to quality health care. And from a financial wellness perspective, the people that continue to be impacted the most are those with limited access to transportation that is convenient and affordable. So you may ask, well, what is Richland County doing about that? Well, Richland County has played an active role in addressing these challenges by providing financial resources to promote public health and to provide access to public transportation. Additionally, Richland County Council, along with other Richland County personnel, serve on boards within our community and other groups and agencies to develop solutions to positively affect the long-term challenges our community faces when it comes to public health and public transportation. Again, I want to thank the council for their support of these very two critically important issues as they will continue to be challenges for our community. So how does this tie into our strategic plan? While in the early stages of our strategic plan, Richland County Council realized that we needed to pair their philosophy along with the collective skills of the many people that serve Richland County government, with the result being a service-first minded organization that meets the needs of its customers by providing them with a high quality of life. The plan itself contains 6 strategic goals. The goals are to foster good governance, invest in economic development, commit to fiscal responsibility, to plan for growth through inclusive and equitable infrastructure, to achieve a positive public engagement, and to establish operational excellence. Before these 6 goals were adopted, the county was considering ways to provide better service and better quality to citizens while also being good stewards of the funding received from taxpayers. In an effort to foster good governance, council members individually and collectively have made concerted efforts to participate in trainings and professional development opportunities at the local, state, and federal level designed to equip leaders, with elected leaders in particular, with tools needed to govern effectively. Richland County has also collaborated with other governments and agencies to improve services to its citizens. One such example is the Southeast Water and Sewer System Project, which connected 3 Lower Richland community schools to the county's main sewer service and safely closed 3 failing lagoons that were on school grounds. The project also connected McIntyre Joint National Guard Base to our sewer system, helping to show that Richland County supports its military installations. And these are only a couple of ways that Richland County Council has sought to foster good governance amongst our community. In an effort to invest in economic development, Richland County has continued its diligent work to foster a climate that will attract new industries to Richland County in order to provide robust, high-paying job opportunities for its citizens. This past year, Richland County was able to build on its recent past successes and have another record-breaking year, as you've heard about this past week and on this morning, with over 4,390 jobs coming from new industries coming to Richland County and 327 jobs coming from the expansion of industries already located in Richland County. The largest of the projects being Scout Motors with a projected $2 billion investment and 4,000 jobs. When I talked about this in a recent meeting that we had with the Association of City and County Managers, I also pointed out that that project received the Business Facilities Silver Eagle Award. And I shared it with them, can you imagine a $2 billion project not winning the top award? And I know that we all are very competitive, and no stress on Jeff Rubel to his team, but if we can get that platinum award and get an $8 billion project, I think we'll be super excited about that. But I just want to take that moment really in jest to share the support that we have for our economic development team. So Director Rubel, to you and your team at the Richland County Economic Development Office, thank you for another record-breaking year, and looking forward to what investment looks like in 2024. You don't have to do $8 billion. In an effort to commit to fiscal responsibility, I'm happy to report that Richland County government has maintained the same tax rate for more than 5 years, while seeking ways to provide improved and more efficient services. While some sister counties raised taxes to operate their local government last year, Richland County did not entertain a millage increase for its general operations. The county is seeking to leverage federal and state funding to help support identified community needs. And as a result of that, we are working with state and federal lobbyists who will advocate for funding on behalf of Richland County and its citizens. In an effort to plan for growth through inclusive and equitable infrastructure, Richland County has allocated $4 million to support affordable housing options in the county. Affordable housing remains a need locally and nationally. The council has been intentional in reviewing the capital projects list and taking note of where additional projects may be needed and the impacts of scheduled projects on the community. The county has additionally hired a contractor to perform a transportation needs assessment that will help identify what transportation infrastructure our citizens need. All of these efforts reflect opportunities that the county has taken to affect positive changes and plan for growth through inclusive and equitable infrastructure. Additionally, the county has allocated $1.785 million in community impact grant funding to 37 nonprofits throughout the county. And in an effort to achieve positive public engagement, council members have routinely scheduled town hall-style meetings in their respective districts to discuss potential new business and residential developments, zoning requests, county ordinance changes, and new ordinances, transportation needs, county updates, as well as to hear feedback from citizens. All these, again, reflect efforts of county council to engage the public in a more positive way. The communications team has increased Richland County's presence across various forms of media. I don't know if you've seen it. We've been on billboards. We've been in digital media. We've been in print media. We've been on social media. And as I've traveled to different meetings, people have opined to me that they have seen Richland County be more active on these platforms. So these are ways that we will continue to try to improve and continue to try to provide services and engage with our citizens in a more positive way. And as we do that going forward, we'll continue to seek out information from our departments, from our council members, and from the community as to how we can better engage and keep the community informed. As I mentioned, the communications team provided a year-end review video and created a first annual report book, which we will provide to council in hardback form during its first council meeting, but it is available currently on the county's website. And lastly, I just want to talk about establishing operational excellence. In an effort to establish operational excellence, the county council funded a class and compensation study. Not only did you do that, but you then funded the recommendations of the class and compensation study. And I really want to take a moment on behalf of all Richland County employees and applaud you for that effort. You may not realize how impactful the timing of that decision was. And I'm going to utilize the Office of Fiscal Affairs to give you an update and provide you some information as I tell you about the state of the county, about how important and how timely your decision to take those two steps were. In a recent South Carolina update provided by Frank Rainwater with the Office of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs, he shared that the local government sector still has not returned to pre-pandemic levels of employment. More people are moving to South Carolina, which is a great thing. We're receiving more service requests in our community than ever before, but the number of people available to perform government work is not increasing, especially at the local government level. So what does this mean? This means that when individuals look to provide services and they look to figure out how to perform work at the government level, they generally cannibalize one another. The state government picks from the county picks from the state, city picks from the county picks from the city, county picks from other counties, but the pool of employees does not grow. So by making this step that you made, it will help us go a long way in maintaining the people that we have here within Richland County. And that's very important. The other thing to consider is that he mentioned that as the state returns to its normal trend line for revenues, which were before the pandemic, that it's important that we keep in mind a good fiscal sound decision-making process, which you have done as county council with our efforts in fiscal responsibility. So I just wanted to highlight how timely those decisions were and how they were reflected in comments made at the state level. I shared with you last year that I think that our workforce should be number one in keeping with our priorities, that without employees who are dedicated and committed to providing excellent service, we will not be able to establish and maintain a culture of operational excellence. I still believe that our workforce is the number one priority. I'm going to ask County Council to continue to invest in our employees as you have done in the past, providing equipment, providing professional development and training opportunities. And one of the things I want to share is that as we continue to equip our employees with the resources that they need to provide the level of service that's expected, we can plan to see the long-term dividends of those decisions. We also want to make sure that we provide opportunities for smaller departments who may not have a large budget to get professional development and get training so that these men and women in those departments have an opportunity to matriculate on the compensation plan and move up in the ladder that's provided with that newly adopted plan. A few other priorities before I conclude my remarks. Public engagement remains a top priority. One of the things we talked about last year was bringing on and hiring someone for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I want to give you an update and let you know that the director position has been narrowed down to 2 final candidates. I anticipate making a job offer in the next week and hopefully having someone here within the month of February. So that ideally will help us to be more engaged with our community. This focal point will provide an opportunity for more robust citizen and employee engagement and involvement, and I look forward to updating the council on this effort by our February council meeting. County grants also remain a top priority. We've heard throughout this past year a lot of citizens were interested in gaining access to grants. We talked about how can we do a better job of providing services that will lead individuals to be more readily able to apply for county grants. I'll be asking the county council again this year to continue to support the grants department and looking to provide staff to help the general grant funding process that the county has. The county has, if you want to look at it, 2 particular grant processes. There are grants that are specific and they have employment monies that are tied to those grants. And then there are general grant dollars that the county tries to bring into the county that we don't necessarily have personnel to provide services for. So we want to bolster those services, and that will be an ask that I have of Richland County Council during the budget process. The last priority I just want to mention that remains a priority for us is the Alvin Glenn Detention Center. This past year, the council approved a significant amount of funding to address personnel, equipment, and facility issues at Alvin Glenn Detention Center. Facility renovations are happening all throughout the facility. Some have been completed. You've heard us talk about the kitchen that was fully renovated, the behavioral management unit, which was fully renovated. There are other units that are currently under renovation, and we're excited about their continued progress. There will be a few other opportunities for us to consider going forward as we think about how we operationalize the work at the facility. As I prepare to conclude my remarks, I want to highlight a few key indicators of the county's success. We have county leaders that are recognized as influential contributors in our state. We have multiple award-winning departments. We have multiple nationally recognized budget and financial awards. We have multiple peer association award winners. The Standard & Poor's AAA rating on our general obligation bonds. The Moody's AAA credit rating on our general obligations bonds. We have high economic investment in Richland County. We have a reserve balance that is within our policy thresholds. The county is able to invest in its personnel and its operations. And the county is able to provide funding to support organizations throughout the county. Ladies and gentlemen, I would say that means that Richland County is strong. The state of Richland County is strong. Thanks to the efforts of county council, thanks to the efforts of the staff to manage the budgets that they've been provided, the county remains fiscally solvent and able and ready to move forward in the 2024 calendar year. As I like to always end, I want to focus on the fact that not only has Richland County been resilient, not only has Richland County maintained an area of strength, but Richland County has maintained its unity, united in purpose, united in our calling, and united in our service to the citizens of Richland County. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of Richland County is strong. All right, I didn't talk for 30 minutes. That means you have a little time. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that time to move into our next portion of our agenda. So as we transition to that, if you'll go ahead and grab your Strategic Planning Forum books, we're going to turn to the next item on the agenda, which is going to be the capital projects update. ACA Thomas.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing us a little bit of your time this morning. I'm pleased to say that this is my fourth capital or strategic planning forum, and they have changed a lot. I remember coming here 3 years ago with many of you council members as first-time council members as well, and I am just so happy to be able to be a part of the growth here. Got it. So one thing I'd like to start by reminding everyone here is that a capital improvements plan is just that. It is a plan. Until you have financing sources that work with that, it can't become a reality. When I came to Richland County, we did have a capital projects list. And we have worked to refine that and to identify funding sources for that list. Not always keeping everything on it because we knew that within the 5 to 10 year range, it may not be possible for us to achieve those, but we would put those out to start adding them back as we roll in every year. So one thing that you'll notice this year a little bit with our different with our budget is that we do plan to present to you a 10-year capital improvement plan with funding recommended for the first year. There will be some funding that will roll into additional years simply because, as you all know, moving capital projects forward right now is not a quick thing to make happen. Mechanical and electrical supplies are still very short or very scarce, and to be fair, contractors are very busy, so many times it takes us longer to do that. That being said, though, for the last 2 years, we've also taken our millage. We do have 3.5 mils set aside every year for capital maintenance. That is to maintain our current facilities. And we've been setting that money aside and actually planning for those uses. And if you recall, this past year during the budget, you did approve quite a few of those uses. With me today is Director of Risk Management, Brittany Terry, as well as Director of Operational Services, Bill Peters, and they're going to walk through some of those projects, and then we're going to get to some of the very larger projects also that are on our scope.
Good morning. Brittany Terry. I would just like to start by making a couple notes to the list that you see here. As Lori mentioned, we've had a long list of capital projects that were previously identified, maybe not funded or scheduled. So the start date that you see reflected here very well could be a restart date. It could be a start date within the current scope. And so that, some of these projects were imagined, initiated years ago. So this is a more significant current start date that we are using to measure the progress for these projects. And then also I will make a note. We'll go further in depth on the Alvin Glenn section, but there, that list is certainly not all inclusive of every project that is going on there. A lot of those fall under the general facility upgrades and the general security upgrades. So we haven't pulled every single one of those projects out. There are very many that are ongoing. Some of those have security implications, so that, that's the reason that they're not all pulled out there, but we can provide a more extensive list as needed. So I will walk through just some of these. I would like to first identify a couple very large projects that we have completed this fiscal year. The first one of those being the 2020 and 2000 Hampton HVAC project. That is very near completion. The only item remaining was actually an addition to the original scope. So the original project has been completed, as well as the 2020 Hampton and 2000 Hampton roofing project, which has been completed. And the 2020 Hampton elevator upgrades are underway. So there's been a lot of significant work that has taken us years to finish, and a lot of those projects have been slated 5 to 10 years as identified needs. So it's a very big accomplishment that we have completed those projects this fiscal year. Are there any specific questions as to any of the projects?
So good morning and thank you. I did have a question about the magistrate's improvements. It does state that you've asked for them to prioritize the properties and I guess their needs, but do we have a timeline on receiving information back so that we can kind of start to get the ball rolling?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question, and I'll respond to that. I've been working with the magistrate's offices on these projects and on the funding that was set aside. If I can point out that the funds for the magistrate's offices upgrades were set aside about 4 years ago. There's about $7.3 million that is still remaining in those funds to be able to fund those projects, with the goal being to relocate these offices in their districts, in their appropriate districts, as well as in county facilities. Coming on the February the 6th agenda will be an informational briefing or a request from the Chief Magistrate on that prioritization. So you will be seeing that. If that is adopted by council, we have already begun to look at locations and the priorities that they have established as their top items. And we're also in the process of determining if we can go back with the original design that was approved to be that all of these offices would look alike at that point in time. They would all serve all citizens alike. And we'll be going back to make sure that that is possible, what the new costing on that is. We've got all of those things in the works. So if and when council chooses to approve that, we will have a path forward that will go long beyond the current date until those projects are complete.
So just as a follow-up to that, would it be that when we receive this brief on February the 6th, is it for information only, or for us, we could possibly take action on those items?
You could take action on that item. It would just require approving their priority list.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
That better? Okay. So glad to see on the list that the Hampton Street, 2020 Hampton roof is done. My question is, some criticism I learned as a new council member was past councils had not always put aside money for replacements when these things were coming due. So my question is, if you take 1.3 million divided by, say, a 20-year roof, that's about 55,000 a year. Are we now budgeting going forward that roof change out in 20 years, or will we put that money aside so it's not a budget blowout when it rolls around again?
Yes, sir. Let me answer both sides of that question, if you don't mind. Originally, this money had been allocated from the 2020 bond to be able to do this. We were fortunate enough to have ARPA dollars that could be used for ventilation and improvements of that sort to public buildings, and we were able to reallocate those bond dollars to do other improvements. Additionally, if you recall, there is 3.5 mils on each tax bill for capital improvements. That means capital maintenance improvements. Mm-hmm. This money had not been being set aside before. We've now set this aside for the last 3 years. And that's actually the money that we are setting aside to be able to use this. So in perpetuity, we should have funding to be able to maintain our facilities.
Okay. So that money will be escrowed aside in the budget for when that roof needs to be replaced?
Yes, sir. It's actually set aside as a reserved item or an assigned item in our fund balance.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. As a follow-up to Mr. Weaver's question, we have several buildings that are in serious conditions, dilapidated almost. The Family Service, DSS, which we will be getting a new facility, thank you. And also the courthouse, and that particular building we're looking at that. So what happens in the meantime in terms of capital improvements that are needed with these buildings, because there are some serious issues as we plan for new facilities?
That's a great question, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to answer that. We are evaluating these needs, and yes, ma'am, you're absolutely right about the needs that are there. You'll be hearing for some other capital needs that are here in the county, but some of those are beyond the scope of what we can do. We are not stopping setting aside maintenance money for those facilities. What we're doing is planning for those maintenance needs, moving with some of the maintenance needs that are emergent to make sure that the building is safe and secure for our facilities. And then as council were to decide what priority they would want to move forward with, they would evaluate, do we go ahead with this project, or will whatever replacement or whatever action council chooses for us to do be in place that we might be able to defer some of that to make sure we have the best uses of resources. But we're not going to stop maintaining them. You will notice that a good, for instance, is the EMS facility. I know that we're going to be talking about that as well this week while we're here. We've already allocated the money to put a generator there. Council's actions may make us decide that might be able to be deferred, and that money could then be set aside for something else to be able to be addressed. But we are not going to stop maintaining the facilities because we do have to be able to serve our citizens.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the general improvements list?
There are a couple of large items on here I wanted to point out to you, if I could. Number one is down just below the, about 5 up at the end of the list is the public safety complex. As you know, that's fully funded. It was funded with our 2021 bond and some other funds that we put together, and some reimbursements from the RFA. That is well underway, and if you'll look on page 227 in your book when you have a little bit of time, we get monthly updates from the contractor on that project just because of where it is in the process, because it is an active construction scene. That is actually highlighted there. Also on this list is the Family Services Center, you'll be pleased to know that, to give you an update on it, last week we actually sat down with all of the stakeholders again from each of the divisions and walked through the original floor plan that had been laid out by MBCON and LS3P during the costing estimates. We have another meeting scheduled with this group for final changes on February the 7th. If anyone would I'm happy to share those times with anyone that would like to know, where we'll be coming away with the information that's needed to be able to architecturally design that building. We anticipate that architectural design and permitting would be done prior to the calendar year end 2024. Construction would then begin probably on about a 24-month schedule, which would put us at the end of 26, barring no delays for electrical and mechanical equipment. This facility is a little less complex than the 911 center simply because of the mechanical and electrical requirements in the building, so it may move a little bit quicker. But I don't want to overcommit and underdeliver. Also, we have moved forward with the voters registration and Department of Juvenile Justice floor plan because it was already under a design, under a construction manager at risk project. That is underway. The floor plan has been complete, and they are already doing construction there. I understand that there may be the opportunity later that Chair Mackey may work to have some opportunities for you all to go out and take a look at some of these facilities. Lastly, I'd like to report that we have moved entirely the voters registration and elections warehouse from its prior facility. It has moved to a section of the old Sears building at Columbia Place Mall. We still have a few tiny upgrades that need to be made there, but they've been in there since the end of October. Once the election or the primaries were done at the end of October, they physically moved all of the materials to that facility and are very pleased with that temporary operation. Again, once that's complete, once the new facility is complete, everything will move from that temporary facility to the other end of the mall into what used to be the old JCPenney building. Also, we have completed in totality a long-standing project at the Township Auditorium. Now we'll be moving on to the parking lot for it. Lastly, but not least, on the ARPA dollars, there was $2 million, if you recall, set aside for a water tank in the lower Richland area. We are working currently Utilities is working currently to finalize a location for that facility, and we do anticipate that all that money will be committed by the end of 2024, which is required for us to be able to expend ARPA dollars on that project. Yes, ma'am.
As we're thinking about, thank you, as we're thinking about maintenance, and I know this, we're talking about big things, buildings, that sort of thing, but we're also talking about county property. One of the things I'm curious about is where does kind of the external parts of the building, the visual capacity to invite people in, like our landscaping and all of that stuff, where does that fall under in terms of, say, our spending and budget?
Thank you again for that opportunity. We have been evaluating, especially with our 2020 and 2000 Hampton, looking at some of the improvements there that we would like to make, and we would be coming back to council this year with some recommendations to improve. Number one is security, because when you have two buildings with two different entrances in one, it does make it a little more difficult with that. Security from the back end is being addressed. I will say that Director Terry and Director Peters have done a great job on that. You're going to start seeing some new swipe accesses into offices and things of that nature, so keys and things of that nature will not be used. We also have a lack of ADA parking at that facility, so anything that we do from an external look, we do need to address that, so we're putting together a comprehensive plan for that. With some of our facilities, though, it's more than just an external look. It is actually needing to look at the facilities and their usefulness and what our best alternatives for those are. You'll be seeing some of those today, at our meeting this week. But that is something that we do want them to be inviting. We do want people to come in. You'll also start to see, if you recall, as part of our budget, some improvements that are going to be starting on the second floor for citizens that because that's where most of your citizens end up visiting, that are going to be starting there, and we will be working through the building internally, systematically, to have it all have a cohesive look and a comfortable work environment for our employees, but also a comfortable environment for our citizens to visit. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. ACA Thomas, just as to add on and clarify with what Councilwoman Terratio mentioned, and I don't know if this is what she meant, but I would like to make sure we're also looking at beautification, right? So looking at actual lighting that's outside of our buildings, what plants look like, do we have visible good painting for the lines of parking spaces, is signage good and clear? All of those things that really, really make it look appealing. I think sometimes you drive by it and maybe even with our signs, the letters aren't maybe big enough or visible enough for you to be able to see exactly where you're going.
Yes, thank you. That is a great question, and that is something that we are continually working on. As Lori mentioned, bringing those plans and those proposals, but also just to clarify just a little bit, this list includes capital projects that hit that $50,000 threshold. So there are internal departmental projects that we may not identify using the terminology of capital projects, but some of those things would be included in those projects. And we can certainly provide more information on those just so you can get a full picture of exactly what is going on. Absolutely.
Thank you for this update. I appreciate especially the opportunity to see all these capital projects together and see how they're moving. As we do have, of course, an extended time frame because these are capital projects, I wonder if you've thought about how you plan to update us on how these projects are moving forward. It would be a lot to do it individually all the time. I don't know if this would be a quarterly thing or only major milestones. What are your thoughts?
Thank you for that question as well. If you see this, this actually comes from a spreadsheet. This is just a still shot of a spreadsheet that we have that can track our projects. Monthly, you're not going to get much out of it. We do plan to submit this to you on a quarterly basis. It may be in a different format, and it may be linked to our website as well, because we believe the county citizens should know also how these projects look, unless, of course, they're sensitive. There will be some that we may deem more sensitive than others that may not be tracked like this. But you'll be able to track the process along as well as the status here. We're expanding our project management team as well. So each project will be assigned to a project manager who ultimately will filter up through the operations director. And we will be meeting on a monthly basis to go through, as a staff, to go through all of the capital projects and then reporting back to you all, if it pleases you, on a quarterly basis with this type of report, and allow for any type of interaction that you want to. And of course, if you want updates any other time, please just let us know. We're happy to provide those because we will be tracking these. These are an extensive use of county resources, and they're an extensive investment to make sure that citizens are served, and we want to be able to be as visible as we possibly can with this information.
Thank you. I think that's great, the quarterly reporting and also making it available to our citizens. So thank you, and it's encouraging to hear about the project team to make sure that these things will stay on track. So thank you.
If there's nothing else on generals, I'm going to let Director Terry sort of walk you through some of the projects and where we are at Alvin Glenn Detention Center. And if there's any questions, of course, Brittany, Mr. Brown, Bill, and Kramer Harvey are here that they would be able to address these with you.
Lori, just before you move on, I want to just follow up on a couple of things that I heard council ask about related to the projects. In terms of beautification initiatives and in terms of exterior, there are, as well as the water tank project, all those projects do require some council input. It may not require necessarily full council per se on some of the projects, but certainly the council member representing that district, we really need to get feedback from you in order to move forward in a way that we believe reflects the community. We believe that you're the voice of that community. And while the staff is making recommendations and trying to put things together, they understand that the ultimate representation is you. And so specifically, I would say beautification projects, right off the top of my head, the water tank project, as well as the voter registration temporary project needs input. And so we'll be asking you for that because specifically with voter registrations and elections, they've received their annual security assessment. And in that assessment, they talk about the visibility of folks looking into that temporary space. And so we want to provide some type of covering, but we believe that covering should be reflective of the community, and we would need the input in order to do so. So I appreciate the questions. Just want to make sure you provide us that feedback so that we can move forward with those projects.
And there is one more project that I wanted to mention from the general list, and that is the new Valentine Fire Station, which is in the design and site placement phase at this point. So that is an upcoming project that we are very excited about, which will be a new construction project. Alvin Glenn, as I mentioned, this is not a comprehensive list of the projects there. Some of those are contained under those last two categories of general security upgrades and general facility upgrades. But I will walk through some of these. The one being the kitchen renovation. I hope all of you got the chance. I know most of you were there for the walkthrough and have seen that at various times and stages during the construction, and then once it was completed. So that is a large project that we completed. And along with that, something that occurred after the initial renovation, but that was part of that, would be the grease trap replacement. And so that was something that we did shortly after the initial remodel, and that has been fully completed. And that was, again, to bring that into compliance and then also to plan for a capacity for future growth at that facility. So we did consider that in doing the replacement. Also, as Mr. Brown mentioned, we completed the BMU housing unit, and we currently have 3 other units under construction at this moment. And we are working on an aggressive timeline for those and planning for those to be completed around the end of the fiscal year. And from there, we will continue to progress through all of the remaining housing units in the facility. So when you see the dorm renovations, that's specific to the ones that are currently in progress. And again, under that general category, it mentions the other detainee dorms. So we are certainly not, moving through the initial ones, but there are more to do. And again, we hope to keep that aggressive timeline on those as well. And we are working on bringing in more resources and more contractors and working with the facility in order to make sure that operationally we have a plan to move forward and that we are able to renovate as many of those units at one time as possible. Are there any questions about any of the other projects here on the list at Alvin Glenn, or general questions?
A while back, I asked a question of what percentage of the door locks had been changed. And I think at the time, this was several months ago, it was 5%. Do we know what the percent of the door locks have been changed roughly? Is it on here? Am I missing it?
Sure. So it's at the top. We are about a third of the way through this particular
Okay, right at the top, I see it.
particular
Okay.
project related to cell lock upgrades.
Okay, right.
And so again, just upgrades underway because there are security implications there. We didn't give any more specific details here, but if there are questions, we can certainly
Okay, there it is, right at the
address those
top.
as
Sorry.
appropriate. No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me provide an additional context to that. One of the things related to the lock upgrades, it deals with the ability for us to move detainees in and about the facility in a secure way. And so we're actually, Councilmember, ahead of schedule. But the problem that we're running into is at the time when we started this process, we had roughly about a high average was 725 detainees. So now we're actually cresting over 939. So and that's probably higher today. So the challenge that we're running into now is at one time we had space to move individuals around based off their classification and based off the needs of the facility. And now that's more limited. And so we're running into an issue where there's space for the contractor to do the locks, but we don't have space for the detainees. So that's the challenge we're running into now, is because of the population has bloomed as a result of legislation that happened last year. So we're going to continue to try to battle that, but I wanted you to just kind of be aware that we actually could be moving faster, but for the fact that now the population of detainees has greatly increased.
We are taking steps, we hope, to be able to address this, and this is what Brittany was referring to in being aggressive with this. Currently, while we have these 4 units or 3 more units under construction, we've had our contract or our architect to come up with a scope of improvements at all like-kind dorms, so there will be a different scope for each type of dorm, and they are built in different structures, but many of them are similar. So we will have a scope of work, and we will be going out with an RFP for that particular scope of work, and that would allow us to potentially engage numerous contractors that could be working simultaneously on these units. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This question is directed to Administrator Brown. Will we have an opportunity to discuss the Alvin S. Glenn Detention Center later? I know we're doing the capital improvements now, but is that on the agenda at any point? Or?
Yeah, so the Alvin Glenn Detention Center was not specifically on the agenda for the strategic planning forum, just based on the fact of what you've already done with that. But certainly we will have a number of opportunities going forward with the ad hocs and council meetings, council member, in order to address Alvin Glenn Detention Center.
Yeah, because I think the capital improvement is only one component, a very important component, but it's only one component. There are other issues that are just as important that I think that the council needs to have. If the council doesn't, I need to have the opportunity to further discuss these issues, and many that I have already discussed with you, such as the increase in the number of detainees we're having and the laws that are being put on us, and we're bearing the consequences of those laws. And I think that it's important that we look at all the other parties that are involved, and we need to do something immediately in terms of a blue ribbon committee or whatever, where that everybody that has a part in the detention center and the problems that we're dealing with, we need to come together to try to address those issues. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions related to Alvin S. Glenn? If not, I'm going to ask Dale Welch, our Director of Information Technology, to join us, because I can tell you how much money we've spent on these projects, but I probably cannot walk you through the technology improvements the way that he may be able to.
Thank you, everybody. Dale Welch, Information Technology. What I'll do is I'd like to first talk about the first item on here, which is the largest item we got at $5 million, and that's our Workday product. It touches HR, finance, procurement, budget, and grants. And basically every department in the county, every employee, staff member will all be wholesale changes to the way we've been doing business in the past. Workday is a Fortune 500 company. Only a handful of county governments throughout the entire country have it. So it really says a lot about Richland County and their willingness to invest in improvements in the future of how we account for everything and how we house our data. I want to thank multiple departments, including finance, all the ones that I mentioned before, Vanique, her staff. It's been tireless work since we started this project back in 2022, and we're looking at going live April of this year, so we're really close to getting started. And once everybody gets used to it, I think they're going to love it, because we're doing away with basically paper. Everything's going digital. We even have, I know, right? We even have mobile devices that you can use on your phone that allows you to do a lot of the applications that you currently have to be in the office to do. So we're really excited about it and appreciate everybody that's invested so much time to get this project going. Talking about IT projects is usually what people do to go to sleep at night. So I don't know if that's what you want me to do, is to go down this list. But if there are any questions on any of the items that you see, I'll be happy to discuss them. Ms. Mackey?
Sorry, did I hear someone else? Mr. Brown, did you have something?
It was me, but you can go first, Madam Chair. I'm a voice from the.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. I couldn't see you over there. The item I would like an update on is the last one, our county website, and what we could do to help move this along. I know this is something that has been key on our strategic plan that I personally would like us to at least first quarter get something going so that we can have a budget or some plan in place to update this document. So is there any feedback that we can give or direction that we can give staff to get that rolling?
Could I take that question, Ms. Mackey? Because
Oh,
I was
okay.
working with.
Sure.
With IT, and so council may know, I'm actually not sure. So there was an internal committee that was put together to help draft an RFP. There was I'm not going to use the correct procurement term here, but it wasn't a pre-bid meeting, but there was a meeting that was held that gave the county the opportunity to invite vendors that work with local governments for websites so that we could, before we got into a bidding process, explain what the county is doing, what the county needs, and then get a better feel for what some of those best practices are, because as you know, you live by the RFP and you die by the RFP, just to make sure that we include everything that we need and don't end up locking ourselves out of functionality. And so that draft exists. And so right now the committee is kindly waiting on some additional feedback that I just told Mr. Welch that I know that I need to provide, but I'm happy to also sit down with you or any council member so they can see the drafts of those RFPs now. But I can enthusiastically and wholeheartedly say that our staff is chomping at the bit to get that finalized, to send it out, and that it'll certainly happen this quarter and probably on the much sooner end of that.
Thank you, Ms. Newton.
Did that answer the question enough, Mr. Welch?
I think it did. Mr. Brown, if you want to.
That was a complete answer.
Okay, very good.
Then I also have a question.
Yes.
And so my question was, I don't need to go down this whole list.
Yes, ma'am.
But what we know about technology is always changing, it's always evolving. There are always systems and equipment that need upgrades. So work with me on this question. As you look at the changes that you're making, does this put us on par with where you want to be? Does this make us ahead of where you want to be? I know that there's nothing that stays the same, but there was a time before when I felt like some of our technology might be behind, and I guess I'm trying to figure out, where do these investments put us on the technology spectrum?
Well, I can tell you that we had fallen behind. You're exactly right. The investment through the ARPA funding has really helped us come together with a design that's going to bring us up to speed, going to help us bring end-of-life projects back up to where they need to be, which is going to tighten our security. Cybersecurity is a huge issue with everybody across the world right now. And quite honestly, it's a little frightening, because the older your equipment gets, the more susceptible it is to attacks. Everything that's on this list, virtually everything in here, is all based around updating and tightening our security. And it's pretty exciting, and as soon as we're done, I'll be able to sleep better. And you guys don't need to know how vulnerable we are, and everybody's vulnerable, okay? Everybody. I don't care what you have. But once we get all this in place, we'll be so much better off than what we are now. And quite honestly, we're probably about 5 to 6 years behind on some of this stuff. But the end-of-life projects that are here are just all critical. And one of the things that it takes time to get this done is making all these improvements without disrupting service. IT people are a lot like the cobblers on Disney movies. We work at night, the shoe cobblers. So everything that we do, we have to do in a certain order, and we have to do it at night. So we get nights and weekends, we get these things done. So for example, switching and routing is probably one of the most critical pieces we've got. Routers connect your buildings. Switches connect your floors and your users. They're all at end of life, and a lot of the things that we're trying to employ, we can't do it until we upgrade those switches and routings to have the security that we need. And so we can't go into a building and just start pulling switches and routers and shutting a building down. We just can't do it. So we're doing it at night. And as we do that, then we come in and we do the upgrades to the phone systems, to the servers, and everything else that applies to that location. So it does take time. However, we should be done with everything that's on this list early 2025, which is pretty exciting. I've been here since 1997, so I'm gonna tell you, I'm really excited about this.
Thank you. And then my last question would be, once we make these investments, are we budgeting so that we maintain the technology level that we have and can invest more incrementally?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would point out again that we do have 3.5 mills that we're now allocating annually. That comes up to about $6 million and should grow as our millage grows. That it's not only used for buildings, it's maintenance, and that's maintenance across all paths. So this year, as we send out all of our budget information, we'll be asking for a capital improvement list, and we'll be evaluating all of that. And just because they just did everything, yeah, this year might be a little bit lower on the IT side, but that will not be something that will go unnoticed.
Yeah, and if I can just chime in on that, that was a great question. One of the things that Mr. Welch and I met about was really that whole idea of increasing the technology that the county has. So when the council came in and made it a strategic initiative, it really tied well together. All of the work, there are only a couple of you that were here early on when we almost had our computer-aided mass appraisal system go down on us. And if you remember that scare, then you understand that we've been talking about establishing backups to the backup. But as we do that, and this is not a but, it's just an awareness. When we provide separate services, basically what you're doing is providing a separate service, we're also at the same time trying to decide what other critical areas of the county we're trying to fund. And none of these projects, as you've seen, are small time money. All of these investments that the county is making are very large dollar projects. And so it puts you in a position as a council member as to where you're selecting, priority 1A, 1B. It's not 1, 2, or 3. So it's variation of what's number one. And so I recognize that, our teams recognize that. And so as we have these conversations with you, we want you to keep in mind that a lot of times you'll be making a decision based off literally the number one priority being some variation and not being really there's a number 10. So, but we appreciate what you've done, and it will be something that we continue to focus on. So that was a great question.
So I just want to go on the record to say to all my colleagues, get ready. The paperless days are here. I'm excited. The paperless days are, yes, they're here. I'm excited about it. But with that, even though I had some conversations with a couple of my colleagues encouraging them to not have, thousands of pages of paper being sent to their homes every week. But, with that, we laugh about it and, and it's to your preference. But I think that part of the challenge is that it's a comfort level. And so as it is a comfort level, it is a major systems change. And so with that, I want to just hear what are we doing to prepare our staff and even the county for, a whole changing the way we do business internally.
Very shortly, even before we go live in April, I think it starts in March. Yeah, okay. We're gonna have just tons of training. In fact, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but staff, directors, everybody's gonna go through training in council chambers. We've got to schedule 100 folks at a time. So we plan to hit everybody in the county, and they'll be recorded so they can go back and review them anytime on any section that needs to be reviewed. So yes, ma'am, it's a great question.
Even with that, this is one of those things that I think that we would even include as ongoing staff development training, because of course, like with all software, there are always updates, there are always things that are changing, so that would be something that would be a part of our just ongoing training that we would offer on a regular basis.
You're absolutely right, and that will be ongoing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
One other item on that is part of the new Workday system is that we're going to be moving to an online timesheet. Every employee will be doing that. So I've worked with Dale and his staff to also, it's important to get the training, but it's important to understand that you need the training so that you will get the training. So we've worked to get together a group that will be doing road shows out to all of the department, to their staff meetings, to say, this is coming. If you don't do it, you might not get your pay on time. So you really need to attend these trainings, and the trainings are a huge list, numerous times a day, over and over again. And then the nice thing about Workday too is Workday has a place to store all of these help videos. So if somebody finds theirself at a disadvantage for knowing exactly how to do something and they can't seem to find the help that they need immediately, they can go back and watch a video. Now, I'm not good at doing that. I need somebody to show me. But this will give them that help. And then, of course, like I said, I'm just going to put a plug in for our IT department. I've been in local government for a long time, and I've never had an IT department that was as accessible and as helpful as our IT department is. So if there's no other questions on this, yes, sir?
I'm a little concerned about my constituent when it comes to IT and making sure that they're informed in terms of how they connect and get information from the county and so forth. So we got to do a better job of that, I think. Even when someone called me up and said, Mr. Livingston, I want to do this grant, but I got to go online. I can't figure out base, I can't get the first base, that kind of thing. So I think we really need to figure out a way to not get too far ahead about the city, or at least let them be more informed in terms of what we're really doing.
Yes, sir. And we will, with many of the grants and things of that nature, we do workshops, and I can see us having ways to do workshops for other things as they migrate to that, and then working with the communications team to actually have it so that it's very visible and either on our website or in other formats. But as we redevelop our website, that's another thing, is to make sure that citizens have the access and engagement, and it's easy. It doesn't take a long time to get to it.
Good, because I can't educate them like Ms. Barron.
Sure.
I just had one comment to add on the cybersecurity front. Completing these projects will positively impact our ability to obtain additional cybersecurity coverage and even higher limits there. That has been an issue that everyone faces as you make those upgrades. You are able to obtain additional coverage, so that's something that will positively impact the risk management area as well, and the county's bottom line, just as the facilities-related projects will impact our property insurance, potentially our self-funded liability program as well. So those are all moving in a positive direction. They may not seem directly related, but a lot of the things that IT is working on will help us on other fronts as well.
Any last questions on capital projects of any sort?
ACA Thomas, and I know you mentioned at the beginning about we would receive a 10-year capital improvement plan, and so if what I'm asking is going to be in that, I'll wait to receive that. But outside of what is listed, I really wanted to find out how are we maybe prioritizing and listing others. So for example, I do think our administration building itself is, outdated and could provide additional updates than the ones that are listed here. And so I didn't know if we looked at that as a whole to say what else we need to do, or if that's coming on a future list, or if you could take this as my feedback now.
Administrator, did you want to respond to that, or would you like for me to?
So you can respond, but Ms. Mackey, that was kind of one of the thoughts we were talking about beautification and feedback. So there are certainly initiatives that the staff has identified. But we also recognize that there are priorities that have been on the list that have not moved forward. So as we move forward with those projects, there are projects that we have that we believe reflect, those projects weren't on the list at the time. So we're trying to do things sort of kind of in order of what was listed and not done, and then get caught up to what may be next. So if there's an item that you all would put before a project that is currently on the list, that is something where we would need feedback from to understand how you view the priorities of the capital projects that we have listed and then where the funding should go.
So earlier, you mentioned the Ballantyne Fire Department, and that's a new construction. What about the existing fire stations that we have that need a lot of attention?
If you'll notice on that list, there also is, we also put annually about $100,000, I believe it is, into doing just maintenance to those. And then we'll also there are also other funds to do some renovations also for fire stations. That just happens to be the one that's there now.
So there's $100,000 that we set aside
Annually.
Does the city provide any to that cost as well? Because I'm thinking of one fire station in my district that I know could use take the whole $100,000.
So it depends on where the station is. The city maintains their city stations. The county maintains those stations where the Columbia Richland Fire Department operates, and they are very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So please, let's talk to us about that. We can make sure that it's on the list. I'm sure it probably is, but we actually also have, Bill now actually has somebody that's dedicated to making sure that the maintenance at the fire departments are being done.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One thing to add to that as well, some of those were identified as smaller projects. So we have kitchen renovations, locker room renovations that are currently underway, in addition to those new stations and the renovations listed here. So we actually have a couple of those projects that are happening as we speak.
Anything further? If not, what I'd like to do is to point out that if you, just quick math, this is about $174,000 worth of projects that we currently have underway, which is a significant investment. We thank council for your support and for helping us, or for giving us the ability to be able to do this. And we look forward to presenting to you another plan. And as I said, one thing that we will always do with you is to give you not only a list of what the priorities are and what the projects are, but also how we plan to fund those, including if we don't know where the funding will come from and what we need to do to think about that. So with that, I appreciate it and thank you.
Everyone, we're going to take our first break right now. It is 10:05. If everyone would be...
as well as smart actions to accomplish this particular project. So if you look on the second page that we have, it starts with each one of the goals that are in your packet and the objectives that are tied to those particular goals, as well as the initiatives. The fostering good governance covers several line items of objectives as well as the initiatives. And we want to make sure that you understand how this particular template is operating. Each initiative has an initiative description, and there's the original versus the revised description. And then if there was communication that needed to go to council we wanted to ensure that that information was provided as well. In some of the initiative descriptions, you'll see that there are items that are discontinued, and they're discontinued because they're completed, or they're discontinued because they have been consolidated with other objectives or initiatives in the process. Each one of the goals that we have has a specific goal owner. We have 6 specific goal owners, and if there are any questions as we go through this process, I may have to defer to one of the goal owners in order to assist with answering those questions. As we go through this process, I know I don't want to read every single line to you, so if you have any questions at this time about a specific goal, I can answer those questions for you. I'll give you a few moments to review. Additionally, when the meetings ended on December the 12th, it was requested by the Strategic Planning Committee to bring this information to council so that it could be reviewed, as well as there are 2 items listed on the second page, highlighted in red, that require some council information and consolidating information with other various parties to ensure that those 2 initiatives could actually be accomplished. And so once this information is reviewed by council, it is the hope that it will be presented before council and be approved so that we can essentially lay out the platform. Also on tomorrow, there will be a presentation by the vendor. The young lady's name is Megan Broadman Bishop, and she has another person who works with her named Mr. Robert Hines. And they're going to give you a visual of what our platform will look like with the data and metrics that have been submitted to date. So as I go through the first goal, fostering good governance, there is the development of realistic and achievable goals. Initiative 1.1.1 shows compile a list of goals aligned with the strategic plan and the department's task in moving the goal forward. And then the revision of that is compile a list of goals aligned with the strategic plan and the department's task in moving the goal forward. And this was consolidated with 1.1.3 and 1.3.1. So that's kind of an example of the direction how this particular format works. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out for my colleagues as chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, just for clarity, all of the objectives and initiatives listed in this document are all from the original strategic plan document that we approved as a body. So there's nothing new in here, but going through the process, it was recommended by the third party that we consolidate some to better track them on our dashboard, and it makes better sense to align them with certain departments for staff to get it done. So I just want to make sure everybody knew that it wasn't anything new. These are still the goals, objectives, initiatives we approved, and staff still continues to work on towards moving forward on many of these in here.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. As she mentioned, these are the original goals and initiatives. And originally, there were about 96 initiatives, and it's been narrowed down to approximately 50 to 55.
One question, and pardon my ignorance, because I usually get the information provided this way or at the Strategic Planning Committee, but is this information already on our website and accessible? I know it's something that we've talked about, and if not, what are the plans for making this available to citizens?
Okay, so it is not on our website currently. Invisio, once they provide the platform display on tomorrow, we will wait until we receive approval from council to move forward with the process. Hopefully that will transpire at the first meeting in February. Once we have the go-ahead, then myself as well as Susan O'Kane and Lori we'll work together with Invisio to make sure that we can push this out to the website.
So thank you for your update, and also thank you for stepping into this role so willingly. It's a lot to take on, and we really appreciate you doing it.
Thank you so much. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't say welcome again to our new budget director, Ms. Wilkerson. So thank you, Ms. Wilkerson.
Darlene, if it's okay, one thing I would like to point out to council is that because the strategic plan was adopted, modifications to it must be approved by council. Because the initiatives are linked to the dashboards, we have to have approval of this before the dashboards, which you're going to see tomorrow, and I must say, I think are very impressive. We can't turn on one without the other.
Okay, if we go to the second page, and we'll see where we have those two line items highlighted in red: foster good governance, which is 1.5, collaborate with other governments. You'll see that the initiative revision says that this initiative needs to be discussed and revised with the larger group, including council members. So there's a collaboration with internal as well as external partners that we need to accomplish in order for this particular line item, as well as the one below it, 1.5.2, to be accomplished. Yes, ma'am.
So am I understanding you correctly? Those items that are in red, we need to have that discussion. Is that discussion something that we need to have now, or is that something that we need to go, we'll go back to the committee? Where are we with that? Because it sounds like it seems like we're just kind of pausing, and I want to.
I'll defer to ACA Thomas for this one.
Thank you, Darlene. Thank you, Councilman Barron. And I think probably it could go either way. We could take input that you have today and collect that to be presented as an addendum to this document during the, with the council agenda. So you all could consider your own views at that point in time. And I believe we're going to pull this up on screen now. But that would be if there's time to define what you all believe that looks like, you could do that now, or if you would prefer to discuss that during the meeting, of course, as I said, if you decide to go ahead and have that discussion now, we can put those notes together and have it for consideration as part of the agenda.
And I would also just say, Ms. Barron, just so you know, it has already been discussed in committee. And so the next step would be for it to be discussed in meeting, at the actual council meeting for the full body, but this is to bring it here so everyone can kind of see it if there's any concerns per se, but it has already been discussed in committee.
I guess the follow-up to that, if it's already been discussed in committee and then there is something that is coming before full council, this is merely information to let us know that there is additional information coming forth?
This is the information and recommendations, and then tomorrow, when the third party comes, you'll see the actual dashboard piece that would accompany this. So they're one and the same, they're tied. So this is more so kind of the text and initiatives that you'll see, and then tomorrow you'll see the dashboard visual piece that the public will see, that we've always been talking about, that'll kind of show the track, the percentage complete and that type of stuff.
Okay, because I guess I'm just confused a little bit now because of the questions that are listed here. I was under the impression that there was some information that was needed from council, but what you're saying is that the information that we'll receive with the dashboard will clear up what we have in this book.
No, ma'am. The questions that are here, more than welcome. Everybody can give feedback and talk about it
Got
now. or
Okay.
you can wait to the meeting. So that, you're right, the question can happen now. If folks want to digest this more and talk about the meeting, they're welcome to do that as well. And the dashboard piece is just the visual piece of this, but it's not anything different.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Additionally, as we go through this process and the dashboard becomes presented as a visual for our stakeholders, this is going to be a continuous and fluid process. It's not going to be that we do this one time, it's set in stone. The primary reason for the goal owners are to encourage that the data and the metrics continue to be updated on a frequent basis so that the information that our parties see, our external parties see, are the most frequent or recent updates that we can provide for them.
If I could just provide one piece of input towards that goal of intergovernmental collaboration, I think that we have great individual relationships with our peers in other municipalities. We have great conversations. Sometimes they're more regionally based. But one of the things that I would hope to see is how we communicate collectively with those other bodies. How are we sharing updates with them? Are we on a regular, and regular doesn't mean every day or every month, but have some cadence of regular meetings where we convene and we talk about how we're tackling things together. And to that end, one tactical thing that I would personally love to see again is we used to have, I don't even remember what it was called but we had an annual legislative reception. And I know that that seems like a small thing, but it was an opportunity when all of the Richland electeds were together in a room, and it was an opportunity for us to start that process. And so that's not the extent of everything that I think should be done to facilitate that collaboration, but I would love it if we could explore bringing that back because it was helpful.
Annual legislative reception. Okay, that's an opportunity for us.
Also, just, that was one, but also I do think there should be some sort of regular body-to-body meeting. And again, regular could be annual, but where we talk about more substantive issues.
Okay, so semi-annual or quarterly? Okay.
I don't know if this falls under this initiative really or not, but one of the things that I am curious about is, yes, we can communicate with each other, yes, we can meet with each other, and also how is it, what is the mechanism by which we sort of make sure that the actions that we say we maybe all agree on can move forward. It's sometimes, I believe, the case where, we may have some kind of intergovernmental agreement to, I don't know, do some signage or something like that. And then it will get stuck in one place or another, and we find ourselves, years later still having no sign, which is something we said that we all wanted.
Okay, can I defer to ACA Thomas on this question?
It sounds to me like, and if this is not it, perhaps during collaboration to assign key stakeholders responsibilities. Would that incorporate?
I mean, I think, yes, that would be great. And tracking and just a mechanism for us to actually push on a thing when maybe it seems to have stalled out. Is my question kind of making sense? Okay.
So maybe to add to that would be to determine a pattern or a follow-up mechanism.
That's, yes, very much that.
Okay. It looks like we need a little more time to digest the information. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one, and maybe I'm moving forward a little too much, but I'd like to know how we're doing once we get things in place. Just for instance, one of the things I remember that we talked about was staff morale within the county. And since then, we've kind of heard them talk about salaries, and we put in place for them to have 4% COLAs and then the actual study. So how do we know, or how have we measured the improvement of that, or how that's going?
So I'll defer to Administrator Brown for that response.
So that's a great question, and that's one of the things that we have to implement is a measuring tool. So we have just initiated these programs, but I can tell you that's one of the conversations that our HR director has talked about, is basically measuring in employee engagement. And I know that she's bringing on resources to help departments directly have individuals that are going to be tied to them, which I think would be one way, but we are looking at providing an actual measuring tool to measure employee engagement. So for lack of a better term, like an employee survey that would speak to some of the different issues, concerns, opportunities that exist in employment and how the agency is viewed by its staff members. So that's not something we have on hand today, but that is something that an additional tool that we're looking to add.
If between now and the time that this information does go before council, you have any questions, please email us that information so that we can try to respond as quickly as possible to ensure that you have all the information that you need prior to the meeting. Any additional questions?
No question, but thank you for putting this in a form that I could read.
Actually, it was very tiny and none of us could read it, so that's a good deal. All right. If we don't have any other questions, then we'll move forward. Thank you. With the data and metrics that have been submitted to date. So as I go through the first goal, fostering good governance, there is the development of realistic and achievable goals. Initiative 1.1.1 shows compile a list of goals aligned with the strategic plan and the department's task in moving the goal forward. And then the revision of that is compile a list of goals aligned with the strategic plan and the department's task in moving the goal forward. And this was consolidated with 1.1.3 and 1.3.1. So that's kind of an example of the direction how this particular format works. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out for my colleagues as chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, just for clarity, all of the objectives and initiatives listed in this document are all from the original strategic plan document that we approved as a body. So there's nothing new in here, but going through the process, it was recommended by the third party that we consolidate some to better track them on our dashboard, and it makes better sense to align them with certain departments for staff to get it done. So I just want to make sure everybody knew that it wasn't anything new. These are still the goals, objectives, initiatives we approved, and staff still continues to work on towards moving forward on many of these in here.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. As she mentioned, these are the original goals and initiatives. And originally there were about 96 initiatives, and it's been narrowed down to approximately 50 to 55.
One question, and pardon my ignorance, because I usually get the information provided this way or at the Strategic Planning Committee, but is this information already on our website and accessible? I know it's something that we've talked about, and if not, what are the plans for making this available to citizens?
Okay, so it is not on our website currently. Invisio, once they provide the platform display on tomorrow, we will wait until we receive approval from council to move forward with the process. Hopefully that will transpire at the first meeting in February. Once we have the go-ahead, then myself as well as Susan O'Kane and Lori will work together with Invisio to make sure that we can push this out to the website.
So thank you for your update, and also thank you for stepping into this role so willingly. It's a lot to take on, and we really appreciate you doing it.
Thank you so much. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't say welcome again to our new budget director, Ms. Wilkerson. So thank you, Ms. Wilkerson.
Darlene, if it's okay, one thing I would like to point out to council is that because the strategic plan was adopted, modifications to it must be approved by council. Because the initiatives are linked to the dashboards, we have to have approval of this before the dashboards, which you're going to see tomorrow, and I must say, I think are very impressive. We can't turn on one without the other.
Okay, if we go to the second page, and we'll see where we have those two line items highlighted in red: foster good governance, which is 1.5, collaborate with other governments. You'll see that the initiative revision says that this initiative needs to be discussed and revised with the larger group, including council members. So there's a collaboration with internal as well as external partners that we need to accomplish in order for this particular line item, as well as the one below it, 1.5.2, to be accomplished. Yes, ma'am.
So am I understanding you correctly, those items that are in red, we need to have that discussion? Is that discussion something that we need to have now, or is that something that we need to go, we'll go back to the committee? Where are we with that? Because it sounds like it seems like we're just kind of pausing, and I want to.
I'll defer to ACA Thomas for this one.
Thank you, Darlene. Thank you, Councilman Barron. And I think probably it could go either way. We could take input that you have today and collect that to be presented as an addendum to this document during the, with the council agenda. So you all could consider your own views at that point in time. And I believe we're going to pull this up on screen now. But that would be if there's time to define what you all believe that looks like, you could do that now, or if you would prefer to discuss that during the meeting, of course, as I said, if you decide to go ahead and have that discussion now, we can put those notes together and have it for consideration as part of the agenda.
And I would also just say, Ms. Barron, just so you know, it has already been discussed in committee. And so the next step would be for it to be discussed in meeting, at the actual council meeting for the full body, but this is to bring it here so everyone can kind of see it if there's any concerns per se, but it has already been discussed in committee.
I guess the follow-up to that, if it's already been discussed in committee and then there is something that is coming before full council, this is merely information to let us know that there is additional information coming forth?
This is the information and recommendations, and then tomorrow when the third party comes, you'll see the actual dashboard piece that would accompany this. So they're one and the same, they're tied. So this is more so kind of the text and initiatives that you'll see, and then tomorrow you'll see the dashboard visual piece that the public will see that we've always been talking about that kind of show the track, the percentage complete and that type of stuff.
Oh, okay, because I guess I'm just confused a little bit now because of the questions that are listed here. I was under the impression that there was some information that was needed from council, but what you're saying is that the information that we'll receive with the dashboard will clear up what we have in this book.
No, ma'am. The questions that are here, more than welcome. Everybody can give feedback and talk about it
Got it.
now, or
Okay.
you can wait to the meeting. So that, you're right. The question can happen now. If folks want to digest this more and talk about the meeting, they're welcome to do that as well. And the dashboard piece is just the visual piece of this, but it's not anything different.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Additionally, as we go through this process and the dashboard becomes presented as a visual for our stakeholders, this is going to be a continuous and fluid process. It's not going to be that we do this one time, it's set in stone. The primary reason for the goal owners are to encourage that the data and the metrics continue to be updated on a frequent basis so that the information that our parties see, our external parties see, are the most frequent or recent updates that we can provide for them.
If I could just provide one piece of input towards that goal of intergovernmental collaboration, I think that we have great individual relationships with our peers in other municipalities. We have great conversations. Sometimes they're more regionally based. But one of the things that I would hope to see is how we communicate collectively with those other bodies. How are we sharing updates with them? Are we on a regular, and regular doesn't mean every day or every month, but have some cadence of regular meetings where we convene and we talk about how we're tackling things together. And to that end, one tactical thing that I would personally love to see again is we used to have, I don't even remember what it was called, but we had an annual legislative reception. And I know that that seems like a small thing, but it was an opportunity when all of the Richland electeds were together in a room, and it was an opportunity for us to start that process. And so that's not the extent of everything that I think should be done to facilitate that collaboration, but I would love it if we could explore bringing that back because it was helpful.
Annual legislative reception. Okay, that's an opportunity for us.
Also, that was one, but also I do think there should be some sort of regular body-to-body meeting. And again, regular could be annual, but where we talk about more substantive issues.
Okay, so semi-annual or quarterly? Okay.
I don't know if this falls under this initiative really or not, but one of the things that I am curious about is, yes, we can communicate with each other, yes, we can meet with each other, and also how is it, what is the mechanism by which we sort of make sure that the actions that we say we maybe all agree on can move forward. It's sometimes, I believe, the case where, we may have some kind of intergovernmental agreement to, I don't know, do some signage or something like that. And then it will get stuck in one place or another, and we find ourselves, years later still having no sign, which is something we said that we all wanted.
Okay, can I defer to ACA Thomas on this question?
It sounds to me like, and if this is not it, perhaps during collaboration to assign key stakeholders responsibilities. Would that incorporate?
I mean, I think, yes, that would be great. And tracking and just a mechanism for us to actually push on a thing when maybe it seems to have stalled out. Is my question kind of making sense? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So maybe to add to that would be to determine a pattern or a follow-up mechanism.
That,
Sis.
yes, very much that.
Okay. It looks like we need a little more time to digest the information. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am?
I have one, and maybe I'm moving forward a little too much, but I'd like to know how we're doing once we get things in place. Just for instance, one of the things I remember that we talked about was staff morale within the county, and since then, we've kind of heard them talk about salaries, and we put in place for them to have 4% COLAs and then the actual study. So how do we know, or how have we measured the improvement of that, or how that's going?
So I'll defer to Administrator Brown for that response.
So that's a great question, and that's one of the things that we have to implement is a measuring tool. So we have just initiated these programs, but I can tell you that's one of the conversations that our HR director has talked about, is basically measuring in employee engagement. And I know that she's bringing on resources to help departments directly have individuals that are going to be tied to them, which I think would be one way, but we are looking at providing an actual measuring tool to measure employee engagement. So, for lack of a better term, like an employee survey that would speak to some of the different issues, concerns, opportunities that exist in employment and how the agency is viewed by its staff members. So that's not something we have on hand today, but that is something that an additional tool that we're looking to add.
If between now and the time that this information does go before council, you have any questions, please email us that information so that we can try to respond as quickly as possible to ensure that you have all the information that you need prior to the meeting. Any additional questions?
No question, but thank you for putting this in a form that I could read.
Actually, it was very tiny and none of us could read it, so that's a good deal. All right. If we don't have any other questions, then we'll move forward.